Welcome, guys, to Love and Beloved podcast, and it's a safe space to learn, to grow, to renew, to explore the real stories and practical tools that will help you to navigate your life challenges and rebuild confidence and live with love and courage and purpose and joy. And you guys, like, I want to tell you, you're not alone. You're loved and you're matter. And my guest says no one should have to grieve alone. And joining me today is Shirley Thiessen. And welcome, Shirley, to Love and Beloved Platform.
Thank you, Lena. It's really a privilege to be invited. So I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for being here. And Shirley joins this episode with a clear mission. No one should grieve in isolation. And she confronts the common fears and avoidance that keep people silent around loss and replaces with practical, compassionate actions. So tell us, Shirley, a little bit about yourself. Your lived experience matters here, and grief touches everyone. And what you learn will help to people feel less alone.
Mm, Thank you. Well, I'll invite you into my story in the year 2012. And my husband, Carey, and I have two children, our son, Jordan, and daughter, Chantel. And at the beginning of 2012, they were both students at university. And just after that Christmas break, that ends about mid-January, they were going back to university. And I just had a hunch that this would be a year of significant milestones, particularly for my son. And sure enough, in January, he proposed to his girlfriend. We were so excited to add another family member. Then in April, he graduated from university, like huge milestone. Then, after a nationwide search in June, he landed a career job in our city of Calgary. And I was so relieved that he would be living nearby. Well, October, Jordan and his bride got married. And as you can imagine, we were just so thankful to God. Like just like you do with your kids, we had invested so much love, time, energy, prayer, and money into this kid. Now Jordan was gainfully employed, happily married, and off our payroll. Like life was great. Well, just after the wedding, my husband and I went down to California for a vacation. And about 4 days into that holiday, I decided to go to a department store to buy something for our condo. And I decided that day I was going to shop efficiently, just in and out, find it, buy it, take it home, done. But as I entered the department store, I was distracted by a rack of dresses on clearance. Forgetting that I was in a hurry, I went over to have just a quick look. There was a black dress that really caught my eye. I admired it, but I didn't need a dress, so I put it back. And as I started to walk away, I heard these words: I want you to buy that black dress. You are going to a funeral. Honestly, my head whipped around to see who said that. There were people in the store, but no one was even close around me. I continued to walk away, and this time I could read the words in my head, kind of like a news ticker. Before I knew it, I'm in the change room wearing the dress. It felt comfortable, but my rational thought was, I don't know anyone who has recently died. Like, I have no funeral to attend. Besides, I already have a black dress in my closet. Like, what am I doing? But that message repeated. And I've heard God's whisper to my spirit. I felt his nudges, but never before did I receive such a bold directive. I could not avoid it or deny it. And although it felt a bit self-serving to me, I thought, I'm just going to buy the dress. I had no idea to whose funeral I was meant to wear it. Well, I didn't have long to wait before the mystery was kind of solved. Just a few hours after that shopping trip, a California police officer was at the door of our condo. In a matter of minutes, my worst nightmare began to be unraveling. Our 23-year-old son, just married 12 days, had been killed in a workplace accident. He had fallen 116 feet down an elevator shaft at a power plant. It took me a few minutes, Lena, before I could connect the dots. Like that black dress, the one I had just purchased. Like now I realized that was for my son's funeral. And I just sobbed in disbelief. But it's interesting what comes to your mind immediately. And a verse that I hadn't even been memorizing, but it came to my mind, Deuteronomy 31:8, that says, "The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." And I just saw the fingerprints of God on my life in that way, that he had picked out what I would wear to my son's funeral. And it felt like such a generous, loving gesture by my Father God to remind me that I was not alone.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And it's so powerful. And God is amazing. And
Mm.
it's what's interesting listening to your story of grief and overcoming. This is what you lean on to, that God is graciously already prepare the way. And how would this loss reshape your understanding of God's presence in season of devastation? And what shifted in your faith as you learn to live without grief? Because we can go one way or another in grief. Tell us a little bit more about this process.
Yeah, well, I wish I could tell you that I continue to trust God with my pain. But as the weeks and months after the funeral, the fog of my loss started to lift and the shock was wearing off. And I realized, wait a minute, my son is gone for the rest of my earthly life. Like Jordan loved God and was a follower of Jesus. I know I will see him again in heaven, and that is a wonderful comfort. However, I'm thinking that is a very long wait. Uh, And I know that God is sovereign. He's all powerful. And suddenly it felt like God's timing was questionable. I mean, Jordan was just at the cusp of his life, really. Um, and God's lack of intervention, because I know he
Mm.
could have saved Jordan from that accident. And it just felt like maybe he didn't love me like he loves other people. And suddenly I was spiraling into despair and doubt. And our enemy, he doesn't fight fair, and he often tempts us to doubt God's goodness when we are in pain. Because, like you say, we do have a choice. We can lean into God, or we can decide to give him our back and refuse to even talk to him. And that was starting to be my story. Even though God had been so gracious and demonstrating his love for me with that black dress, I was like, wait a minute, where were you, God? And what I found was that God often gives us comfort in the form of other people. He makes his love obvious to us through the care and compassion of others. And he gave us friends that we already had, but were unfamiliar with loss, and they were unsure really how to come alongside us in ways that would be helpful. And it just so happened that at their church, on a Saturday, shortly after Jordan died, there was a grief webinar or grief seminar offered. And it was how to come alongside your grieving friends. And so our friends, Dave and Laura, they attended, they took notes. And what it did is gave them confidence and ideas of how to walk alongside us in our pain.
One moment, Shirley. For some reason, your video is disappear. Can you
Oh
still see
no,
me?
What?
Oh my goodness. This is like, honestly, guys, I have to tell you all this thing that's going on with between me and Shirley conversation, even from beginning me reading. I have like this severe panic attack from nowhere. And I think I messed up some words in the beginning and I couldn't even finish her biography because I have like this like hit into my face and my brain, and now the camera is gone. Listen, and this is not the first recording that we're doing. I kid you not, this something about this conversation, guys. If you
Mm,
hear something or see something for yourself, and now she's talking about the friends who were supporting them in this time. If God put it something on your heart, please share this conversation. Something really good gonna happen through it. That's why the enemy that I'm truly believe messing up everything and try to not to release this episode, but I will do it. It's coming out. Doesn't matter if video gonna get slowed down or disappear. If you see like any inconsistency, we still persevere and we finish this episode. For you, take everything what Shirley is sharing because she lived through this experience, and I will add some of my experience as well because we all experience loss. This is inevitable. One way or another, you, your family, your friends, or anyone around you gonna go through this experience of loss because it's part of our lives. So please sit down, jot some notes, and don't pay attention for this mishaps like of my language or the words or anything else. Just please be open and willing because God will bring you healing through this episode. Sorry about that. And Shirley, please continue.
yes, thank you. So our friends had this new confidence of how to come alongside us. And I realized right away that looking back before losing my son, I was really not that caring grief companion
Mm.
that I was seeing my friends do for me. So, for example, when I had a friend who had a loss, I kind of had this checklist. I would send a sympathy card. I would attend a funeral. I would bring a casserole, perhaps, or
Usual
give them
thing
a
that
hug. And
everybody else do. That's what
right,
I
and
know
just
how to
yeah,
do.
right, and tell them I'm praying for them. And then I thought, like, my responsibility is over. Now it's up to them and God to process their loss. After losing Jordan and watching others how they cared for us, I noticed they did four things that were so impactful. And
Mhm.
I'd like to share that with you, Lena.
Absolutely.
So I made an acronym, LAP, LAPP, to help me remember, and I hope it helps others remember these four simple things that actually express empathy and compassion to someone who's brokenhearted. And it doesn't matter what kind of loss they've experienced. It could be job loss or loss of a pet or a death of a marriage. No matter what the loss, these four things are very, very effective in expressing empathy.
Because it's grief that we
Right,
are addressing, yes?
right, it is.
Mhm.
And we do grieve things that I mean, I wouldn't have thought, the younger me would not have thought that there is a grieving process with the loss of a dream.
Mhm.
Um, but we do need to acknowledge that and process it. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, this is the first one. L is for listen. I mean, it sounds so super simple, but listening is kind of a lost art in our society. And by listening, I mean like active listening, where you are seeking to understand. It means not interrupting. It means asking maybe gentle follow-up questions. It's allowing pregnant pauses because someone who is in intense pain often can't even find the words to express their heart. And listening is a beautiful thing because a little piece of healing starts to happen in that griever's heart. And so L is for listening, and that we can all do. And then A is for acknowledge the loss. One of the things I think was so impactful is when people would say my son's name,
Mm.
Jordan, they would bring him up in conversation. They would ask, what do you miss about Jordan today? And or what does your grief look like in this year of your loss? So many beautiful ways to acknowledge a loss. My sister made these eternity scarves that she called Jordan scarves, and she sold them to several friends, I think 40 friends. And every time I saw a friend wearing this scarf, it just felt like they were saying, "We're in this with you. We hurt with you. Your pain is in our heart." And what a beautiful way to acknowledge a loss. And then the first P is for pray. And I mean, you might think, well, of course we're going to pray, like, but there was so much more to pray than, Lord, please comfort my grieving friend. There is so much at stake because, for first of all, we need to pray for them physically. Grief often feels like you've had a concussion, emotional concussion. You know, people can look like they're fine on the outside, but with every breath, it hurts. Just like having broken ribs. You can function and look just a-okay on the outside, but with every breath, it hurts. And so praying for their physical abilities to sleep well, praying that they will be able to have even cognitive skills. I remember when Jordan died, suddenly I couldn't remember a thing. I just found tasks that were once so easy and I could almost do mindlessly now felt tremendously hard. We can also pray for their relationships because there's some people that you anticipate will walk with you in this season of darkness, and their discomfort makes them kind of walk away. Others come in close. And so you find that your friendships can change. My husband and I grieve very differently. That difference cannot often cause a wedge in a marriage relationship. Pray for their marriage to be stronger than ever. Pray for their spiritual ability to, again, to lean into God with their heartache, to lament, to express themselves instead of our society, I think, tends to deny our grief and pain, pretend like it doesn't hurt so much, or numb it out, numb it with addictive behaviors or anything that will help us to just forget about it for a while. So there's so much to pray about beyond God, please comfort my grieving friend. And
And
then the,
and can I add to that, Shirley?
yeah,
So from
yeah.
my point of view, that was God was teaching me through all the difficult situation. I actually ask God and then ask people what they need. Because sometimes like we know like what they need, but when you're in that situation, you don't even expect they coming up with completely different things. Sometimes like people say like I need space and I need peace in that space. I need to process this way. I think respecting what they need in that point, in that moment of their life, to actually respect because everybody grieves differently. And
Yeah.
I love to bring the casserole and stuff and be there and all this stuff, but some of my friends, they know that I'm a lot sometimes, even with my helpfulness and goodwill, sometimes they like, you know what, I need a prayer and I need to be alone. And like I have to be okay with that because it's not about me, it's about how this person go through this very difficult time and respect that.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad because you're right. Sometimes we assume
Shirley
what
disappeared again.
I know. This is so crazy. Um,
I can hear you still, so we're still on point. So if your video does
okay.
not come back, you just continue to talk and we're gonna roll with that.
Yeah,
But
I'll
last
just
time
keep
it
going.
did come back, so come back.
Yes, I know. Well, I'll just keep going. But
Okay.
what I love about what you said is that we do need to appreciate that everyone's grief is as unique to them as their fingerprint, for sure. And we need to sometimes ask them, not assume what they need, but really ask, like you mentioned, what would be most helpful, and then step in and do that. So yeah, thank you for that. And then the last P is patiently be present. And you know what I have found that I thought my grief would be kind of wrapped up in a year. If I could
Mm,
just get through all the firsts, that I would be fine. And what I realize now is, well, first of all, psychologists say that when you lose a relationship that is really close, like a spouse, a child, maybe a best friend, um, it is 18 to 36 months after that loss that you actually are in the most acute need of care. Isn't that crazy? Like, who would have thought?
mm,
A year and a half to 3 years after the loss, you are in the most acute stage of needing care. And so I think at least I was that person who thought, well, after a year and a half, maybe they're probably good. They don't need me
mm.
to bring up the name of their loved one anymore or acknowledge their loss. But we just need to be patiently present, keep checking in. And the grief changes so much from year to year that we need to know that their needs also change from that. And maybe initially they do need space, but then later on, they really need you to lean in. And so I've just found it so enlightening what I've learned from my Carey grief companions, who I call my hope heroes. Sometimes we need aspirational title to think something beyond myself that I can be. And maybe you don't think yourself as a hero, but let me tell you, the kindness and compassion of someone who really cares when I am feeling broken and shattered, they are heroic to me. Their kindness feels heroic to me. And so I just want to encourage people like the younger me who just don't really think they don't have a role to play in their friend's loss. Let me assure you, you do. And God has given us a command to love God and love others. That's our purpose. And when we express empathy, we make God's love visible.
That is beautiful. And honestly, I was thinking about the way the grief and loss different with different people uh, in my life. What I mean, um, I lost my baby when I was 15 years old, and
Mm,
she passed away from health complications when she was 3 months old. And I remember carrying her casket to the cemetery in my arms, and then that guilt, shame, condemnation, and that image of burying her was plaguing my mind and my soul. At that time, I was not Christian. I didn't lean into God. I didn't have a healthy relationships or any support, which is so bizarre for me that
mm,
14-year-old actually delivered the baby. Nobody comes support me through postpartum depression. And then I lost the baby. There is nobody was supporting me through this loss. So of course I was
uh,
looking for something to numb that pain because my mind was going through all the different emotions, and it was very um, hard to deal with. I literally had panic attacks, and my heart was like hurting from pain of this loss. So
mm,
I medicated, like being numb, with drugs and booze, because I don't think like I ever thought that I don't want to leave, but I thought if I don't wake up, it's gonna be okay because I live like in hell. So
mm,
that's the huge difference when I met my husband and his father passed away, who was a pastor, and it was Christian family. And that time, I already give my life to Christ. I was baby Christian, and honestly, it was mind blowing how much this funeral was different from another funeral, and how grief and the process that this family went through, because they have faith in God and because they know that it's not the end, and because they went through more celebration of life rather than the life is gone. It
mm,
was, I think, like I was crying the most, and I'm like, something weird about it because I know they love their father so much and husband. And what is that? And the difference was Jesus. They had faith, they have hope, they have people with tons of casseroles and prayers. There were people who were sitting in the quiet with them, with each of them, because they have their own support groups, churches, and stuff. But I was so curious. That was like, I think, like the best word. I'm like, how you saying goodbye to the life and still not like being like super broken, because the way we have funerals back home, it's all about death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're wearing black, everybody crying, wailing, like there's anxiety. My sister like falling unconscious. Like this is kind of vibe I see, because there's no hope anymore. And that was interesting to actually look from different perspective and learning and seeing how God carry like my mom-in-law who loves her husband, and of course she grieve and cry and stuff, but she's like she have that peace and she have that hope. So if you guys don't have relationship with Christ, or you're going through something so hard that you asking those questions, where are you, God, when this is happening to my family, just please lean on those people who gonna support you right now. And God gonna be okay with everything you think and feel right now. He's still gonna love you, because he knows how painful to lose the child, to lose a family, because he went through it with Jesus. So, and then in other part, there's no due date on healing. Maybe it's gonna be 3 years, maybe it's gonna be 10 years. You don't need to apologize. Like just choose the constructive ways, lean on people, do what need to support you and your family as well. But the interesting part that after a couple years I've been with Christ, my father passed away. I didn't cry for my dad as much as I cry for my father-in-law, because I led my father to Christ and I knew that
Mm-hmm.
he's in heaven. And it was such a beautiful leading to that moment that God was reconcile us and led me to give that gift to my father on a deathbed. So you know, it was like completely different experience being with God and being without God, and grief where desperation, devastation, no hope, no peace, no like, so all this internal struggles that we go into, and God like can help you to lift those burdens. And I hope you will lean into that for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm really would like to talk to you about this book. I didn't finish reading your bio, and you're an author, and you wrote the book A Little Black Funeral Dress, and you're founder of CornerBend Grief Bend Grief Ministries, and you build a framework that help people to support brokenhearted without hesitation. And you're committing to turn pain into purpose. Would you please speak about this?
Yeah, so my book, The Little Black Funeral Dress, Five Things I Wish I'd Known About Grief, is available on my website, cornerbend.com. I encourage your listeners to reach out to me there. Um, what I found was over a period of years, I started to get this almost holy indignation, righteous anger that, our communities, particularly our faith communities, are not that great at coming alongside our grieving friends. I mean, I was a pastor's wife for 10 years. I grew up in the church. You would think that I would have known these things. But like I said at the beginning, that I had this list that I would check off. But other than that, I didn't realize that really expressing empathy is caring beyond a concern. It's actually looking for ways that I can help to alleviate the pain in some way. And so I began a ministry, a grief ministry that helps to educate people like the younger me who just need ideas and need some encouragement Because sometimes we can talk ourselves out of reaching out to someone who's hurting. We can say, well, I don't really know them that well. They seem to have a lot of friends and family. I'm sure they're good. I'm sure they're fine without my whatever I can do. But I have found that even simple things like sending a text saying, I'm praying for you today, and this is what I'm praying. Wow, that means so much. Or inviting someone over for coffee and saying, I never got to know your father-in-law. Would you mind just sharing a few stories about him? I'd love to get to know him through what you wanted to share. What an honor to have that opportunity to share stories. And so people just need to be invited sometimes. Sometimes it's just sending a card and saying, I know today is the 1 year anniversary of your loved one's promotion to heaven. I just want to acknowledge that even though you'll see them again, it hurts. It really hurts to miss them. So there are some very simple things that we can do. And so I want to encourage people to kind of decide you're going to even do one thing. And there's a PDF on my website at cornerbend.com that is available to anybody that will just give you some ideas just to get started.
That is awesome. And you say serving others is pathway to soul care. What does outward service bring inner healing, especially for someone living with profound grief or unresolved sorrow?
And that's so counterintuitive. It was to me that part of my own self-care is serving someone else. And I mean, it could be just the smallest gesture, but I found that when I just looked up from my own pain, even for a short time, and just did some sort of act of kindness for someone else who's hurting, a little piece of healing started to happen in my own heart. And it's the beautiful way that God works. And so it really is part of our processing our own loss, because sometimes we might think, well, I can't reach out. I am in such intense pain. I just can't. You can do something, even just a little something like sending a text and saying, I see you, I hear you, I care for you. And I just want you to know you're not alone. That's huge. That's huge.
Absolutely. And that's why I ask this question because sometimes like you're okay and there's somebody grieving, but sometimes you're not okay and you go and help to somebody's grieving and you can actually relate. You can actually feel and say that I understand and it's help both of you. And so interesting, over the years, I actually learn how to respond. And guys, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm not one of those like I'm super obedient God child. When I hear God nudges me to send the text, I'm doing. I'm not one of those. But when I hear this persistent thought that I have to reach out or I can do something, I do it. Doesn't matter what it is, even if it's meal or anything. And sometimes I just know that God asked me to feed this person right now. And they go, oh, I'm going through this. And I end up hearing the story. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you that you make me see because sometimes I don't see, sometimes I'm busy. And it is going out of your way to do something for someone else. But guess what? God works like that for you too. Every time something come to your door, something good, I have people who knock on my door and brought me food I never asked for, but they know that something's going on and they come and they share and they uplift. And that was really wonderful to be part of the awesome community, church community. So definitely, I love being on a meal committee. So every time something happened, good and bad as well, that's how I serve because I love feeding people. I that's how I my love language. I starved for half of my life, so now I like pleases me greatly. It's such a small thing, but when you're not doing physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that meal can make such a huge difference, especially like if there's family too, kids. So pleases me greatly to just do something for this person, because guess what? Nothing really like you can do to ease the grief. This is gonna be a personal journey, personal healing path and recovery with God, and it's gonna take lots of time. But you can do what you can do, and usually you can feel it in your heart or in your spirit or in your mind that you can do. Just follow on that, and nothing needs too big, not too small. Whatever it's there. Just follow on those thoughts. And I was thinking about something I want to say about that too, and it just slipped my mind about the. Uh, oh, I want to share with you, Shirley. I don't know if I told you last time this. I interviewed this lady, and she is like with like neuro pathway surgeon, like neurologist, something like with the brain. I don't know if it's neurology, it's the brain. But
Mm.
she was saying that when you break the bone in the body, your brain store this pain, like the physical pain, and sends all this like so body responses, like so they're like, oh, like now you see the cost, like broken bone, they can see that and everything else. But she said when emotional trauma happened to us, brain records that's exactly like physical pain. So your body's still in pain, but you don't see like no broken bone, no bruises, no nothing,
Right.
but you still in pain until it
Hmm.
heals. So that's how our brain, that's why sometimes like we experience that kind of like trauma or loss or grief. That's when the shock and the uh, pain and physical pain and like this brain fog, not understanding what's going on. It's exactly like the shock responses if like you would break the bone, actually.
Hmm.
So, but you cannot see because people can function with pain and grief, and that's what why I'm sharing with you guys this, because if you know that there's loss, people can look normal. They can speak, they can walk, they can talk, but they're not okay. So that empathy that you were actually talking about and asking how, like, what can I do for you, and truly listen, actively listen, which is sometimes like it's hard for me to, I don't know how you guys, because I'm decision maker, I'm a advice giver, I'm wanna like do stuff, I'm doer, I'm thinking like I need to give, I need to support, I need to do this. That's why I said in the beginning sometimes I'm too much, and that's what God teaching me over the years. Step back, give people space, and really ask them what they need to do, like to have or to do, rather for me like to pile up on them, because sometimes it's a lot too to deal with other people while you're still trying to process where you are. And although it can be like lovely all Christian, how you said, with the checklist and stuff, sometimes it's a lot too. So we need to like give space. And honestly, you can tell people to give you space. It's the boundary. Sometimes like we feel bad to tell people I need space, but this is like the best gonna be for your mental health, spiritual health, and emotional health. If you need space and you have lovely, awesome family and friends who is like Lena a lot, you can tell them in this point of my time, I need space. Time will show if one day you're gonna be a little bit more open and willing for this kind of support. But just tell people what kind of support you need, or ask people what kind of support they need, and please respect that. I know I already said that, but I just wanna, what is that? Surely you disappear again. What is that called? Like the nail it home? What is that? The phrase, that English phrase?
I'm sorry, what phrase are you talking about?
Um, because I repeat this already, I'm like, but I wanna nail it home. No. What is that?
Yeah.
Hone
You
it
want to bring
home?
it home. You want to, yeah.
Home or something like that,
Yeah.
when you repeat. So make sure, because I do believe this is the most important part after, of course, you faith in God and you praying and you doing everything just to have that respect and know that it's not about you. Don't be offended. Just be open and willing to do whatever the person grieving need to do. And if it's you, just tell them because we cannot read minds. We
Mhm.
all acting from our own experiences, and because we're all different, unique, and we grief it's the same, but it's affecting us differently. So we need to tell people what's going on. Okay,
Mhm.
Shirley. So tell us where people can find out more about your work and where can people find you online as well.
Yeah, so I encourage people to head to my website, Shirley Thiessen, or sorry, it is shirleythiessen.com, but cornerbend.com is the main one. And please reach out. I do some speaking. I love to go to churches and just help people feel empowered and encouraged to how to come alongside their grieving friends. Just like my friends got educated in a grief seminar. And I think we need that. We need encouragement. And you can look anywhere, and people around you are grieving a loss right now. And often your expressions of empathy make God's love visible to them. So as you think about how can I share the hope of Christ? Well, often it's expressing empathy. And empathy is so different from sympathy. Sympathy is like just a passive pity for the misfortune of another. But empathy is actually saying, how can I help carry this burden of loss with you? And that's very different. It's active. And so I just really encourage people to be a hope hero, be that caring grief companion. It is part of your purpose as a follower of Jesus, and it is a beautiful purpose and brings meaning to your own loss because things that you've experienced will give you a little bit of an insight in knowing how to care for someone else.
Absolutely beautiful. So before I let you go, Shirley, I would like to ask you my signature question.
Yeah.
Does love and to be loved means to you?
To love and be loved means to be so secure in my identity as the daughter of the Most High King Jesus Christ, to know that ultimately His love is perfect and that my job, my purpose is to extend that love outside of myself to others, not to hog it to myself, but to spread that love to others. That is, that would be my definition.
That's beautiful. Any final thoughts, Shirley?
Well, I just want to say to that person who is feeling like you are just uh, suffocating in your own loss and heartache, I want you to know that God sees you and God hears your cries. And I want you to ask Him to show you somebody who you can feel safe with to walk alongside you in your grief journey. Please don't try to do it alone. Yes, we need times of solitude in our own losses, but solitude is great, but isolation, continuing to stay isolated from others is actually a tool of the enemy. Please don't please don't let yourself stay isolated from others. We need safe friends who will just share our burdens with us and who will listen, acknowledge our loss, pray, and patiently be present.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Shirley. You provided so much insight and inspiration for us today. And we truly
Mm.
appreciate you sharing your heart and wisdom with us and for speaking from the real experience and your clarity on grief and support and purpose. Give us and our listeners to um, do something about and act on it in their lives as well. And thank you for sharing breaking isolation and strength. Um,
Mm.
oh my gosh, like honestly, guys, it's been a day and strengthens anyone walking through loss. And I want to add to that too that I do believe God loves us through other people. You know, sometimes like in those difficult situations, you don't feel that God is present. Sometimes we are have so intense emotions, but I do believe that that hug you're gonna get, that casserole that you're gonna get, that prayer you're gonna get, that's how God uses people to love on you and all of us in those difficult times. So yes, good advice, Shirley. No, don't be alone for too long. Of course, it's the time, right time for everything. But please do not be isolated. You're not alone. You're so loved. And
Mhm.
don't hesitate to reach out to Shirley. And I will include the links to everything mentioned on this episode. It's gonna be that and website. And you guys don't forget that there's PDF for you to learn and how to grieve and how to support your friends or um, even like take it for yourself as well. Lots of good information there. And you can find this episode on any listening platform such as iTunes and Spotify. Or if you prefer watch it, it's on YouTube as well. And my apologies again about our technical difficulties, but honestly, this content does not being affected. Like if you can see us on not just you gonna hear and will speak to your hearts, and doesn't matter what's happening here online. But you guys stay tuned for next episode of Love and Beloved, and thank you so much for listening and your ongoing support. And thank you so much, Shirley. I'm so grateful for you and your time.
Mm. Thank you. This has been great to be with you.
That's awesome. Okay, guys, stay healthy, stay safe, and love and beloved.